So while we're waiting for the first person to, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Please.
So I'm just curious because I absolutely agree with so many comments, especially Brock's, comment about that's great, they have to be quality, but what are we doing to ensure that we have quality in the stand and deliver classrooms? In so many of these things, if you're just going to flip, use MOOCs, whatever, a lot of faculty will try it and say, oh, it failed, because they go in the classroom and they have no idea what to do. They don't know how to lead pedagogical activities that are effective. So I'm wondering what's happening at your university to help push this successful and how you're kind of creating a culture that's embracing these more effective teaching methods than stand and deliver. And you're all saying that doesn't work, but how do you do that?
I'd like to address that one because I'm in charge of our undergraduate programs. So my goal is to get other faculty to do this. And so we developed, for example, we created an innovation and education committee in our department where we have about 15 people who are involved in that. And so we're going through a series of like education kinds of things. I've got 10 people right now who are flipping classes this term, and I'm going into the classroom to sit and watch and give them comments. And I did a focus group with the students, what would make it more effective. So I think the answer to that is to have training and to have support for the faculty, because it really is not obvious how to do this effectively. And so you need somebody to help you. And who helped me was somebody who is a specialist in engineering education.
Does the reward structure at your university reflect the effort that you actually put in to do this?
Well, I think the atmosphere is there. My chair of my department said we went through a curriculum revision a couple of years ago, so we now know what to teach, and our goal is how to teach. And so from that point, it was clear. From the provost office, he made a very big effort to say this is important. And then the big thing is on promotion and tenure committees. Well, I serve on ours, and anybody that's doing innovation, in education, the young faculty, I go and sit through their classes and talk to their students. And so when their time comes up on the tenure committee, I can address what they've been doing. And people listen. I've sat through the committees and people listen to that. But it has to be endorsed by the administration to work.
So just to make a comment from the point of view of an administrator, what we're doing in the Dean's office, I think to encourage a lot of that, is we provide undergraduate TAs. And those are supported by the Dean's office, and faculty can request them for the classes, but the condition is that they have to be used to lead interactive, active learning activities in the classroom. And people really like that. So that's something where you have to provide an incentive for faculty to do it. And the incentive is you put this person in there that's going to help them actually do that, especially in a large classroom. They really need that kind of resource. And by requesting and providing those TAs, that really helps to, I think, encourage that from a high-level point of view.
So my question kind of follows up to Tanya. I'm Mary Caldera Moore from Louisiana Tech University, and our engineering program is growing by leaps and bounds, and so we are trying to get more and more online courses, and we're actually getting a lot of pushback from lecturers because they want to know how their content is protected, and in particular how their job is protected. If they're creating all of these great interactive online courses that a TA can then execute, who's to say that the college is not going to get rid of them and still use their content? And I wanted to see, if your universities are having problems with this, and how do we, address this issue?
Well, just real briefly, this has come up a lot at Montana State. So it's a real institutional buy-in that our online courses are not going to be correspondence courses. So if you just record lectures and have online, homework problems, it can become a correspondence course, and you really don't need a professor to actually teach the course. And so it's frightening to think that a university would ever adopt that approach. And so at MSU, we've just really have, faculty are making a lot of noise saying it's like, we don't want our online courses to be that. We want it to be faculty-student interaction, and that's the product that we're going to sell, because we don't feel like if we sell correspondence, we're going to do very well in the grand scheme of things. What we're going to be successful at is having meaningful student-faculty interaction And, you know, what the students want is an expert, you know, a professor that's got, or an instructor that's got expertise in the area that brings more than just the canned lectures. So it's kind of just a, I guess, institutional buy-in. That might be overstating it, but that's what we want.
Yeah, I would agree with that, there are analog ways, you know, there are books. If someone just wanted to learn a material, they could get through it themselves, but I think the key to the institutions that are represented here are high-quality courses, and the faculty to student and student interaction is very important as part of that learning experience. It's about using digital resources to create a valuable learning experience, not just, as you say, an e-correspondence course.
So I have the, is it possible to assume that there are some faculty who will not change?
Absolutely.
And what do you do with them? You wait for them to perish out, or you help them? Because I don't know what to do with them. I spent a lot of time with them, but
Well,
thank you.
I think one of the key factors is for faculty to realize there's an impact. I mean, faculty are motivated by a couple of things. What they do, will it have a lot of impact, and will it take a lot of time? And so there's a lot that can be done in little baby steps. They don't have to go through completely changing things like what we did. And it's almost like an exponential curve. You can get a lot with some small things in active learning, bringing that into the classroom. And so training teachers or instructors to do that really helps. And we've done that in our department. And a lot of it is what Brian mentioned, which is bringing students in. A lot of our faculty didn't want to do it until we said, give me your TA, and we'll train your TA to do that. And then they see that, and they'll say, oh, there was a lot of impact, and it really wasn't a lot of involved in my part. And so a lot of people have been doing that because of that there's a lot to be gained with small steps.
You have to go in through the back door and bypass the faculty. That's the key.
Hi, I'm Linda Schmidt from the University of Maryland. Going back one question to the series about faculty. Who owns the copyright on the material that you develop for an online course? Because the faculty owns their book.
I would say in our case, it's a shared ownership where we give faculty, in fact, encourage the multiple use of assets. I think that's one of the great things in the digital world is if you design with multiple use in mind, they can be used elsewhere. We do require approval to be used outside the university system for other applications. And the other thing is by paying for development of those materials, they become a work for hire where we are able to, we always give the instructor the first right of refusal to continue to teach a course, but if he or she declines, then we have those resources to apply going forward.
But now you're a program. What if I'm just in my own department and I choose to do it? I'm just a person with my, within my program. Within my department.
I think that's going to vary institution by institution.
Institutional policy, I think in our case, the university owns everything, but then they license it immediately back to you so you can still,
University doesn't own the book I write.
in our case, it's the same policy, I think, but it varies by
I
institution.
think it's an issue.
So I'm curious, particularly for the all online courses, the draw of access being something that you said works really well with universities. Have you looked at completion rates, particularly for students who are more at risk and underrepresented minorities, particularly in engineering, for the large scale MOOCs and for the undergrad? I know one school, I think it was at ASU, was saying the electrical engineering is going completely online. A lot of the research has really shown for underrepresented and at risk students, a lot of intervention helps and a lot of personal attention. Have you seen any challenges with that, or is that something you're building in as you go forward?
I think that our program is still too young to have a lot of data on that yet. I'm sure that we will be looking at it, but I think what you also have to say is, okay, the completion rates may not be as high as on campus, but at the same time, those people are those who wouldn't have an opportunity to even do it if they didn't have that venue. So it's probably not the best way to do an education, but for some people, it's the only way. And so you hope that that will bring in additional people who couldn't otherwise do something, even if it's, the completion rates might be somewhat lower.
Yeah, I don't have any data, but I'm at the beginning of a project where we're doing exactly that of, deploying these learning materials and then trying to study how different, demographics use them, what their impact is. And I think it's, that's a big question that everybody's looking at in the next decade of, can we use online education to, improve things like this, look at background deficiencies, that's a big one, improve retention rates. So I think that's one of the big, what your question is one of the big questions of the day.
Well, especially when access is the thing we say, it's good for access, but we don't build the support systems for those groups.
Yeah.
No, it's very important.
That's a failed promise.
Yeah.
I'd like to address one thing when you mentioned something about MOOCs and completion rate of MOOCs. That's one of the big complaints against them is their completion rates. And I think it's a wrong metric, is completion rate on the. Oh, well, let me just finish. In terms of completion rates, it's I think it's the wrong metric for MOOCs because I have personally taken some MOOCs and I have no intention of completing them. Too much work. It's like I'm too busy. But it doesn't mean I'm not getting anything out of it. And the other thing is I don't complete, or most of the students, or a lot of the students who take my MOOCs don't complete them on time because they don't do the homeworks within the time frame that we're requesting in order to get that statement of achievement. I have people that are completing my MOOC like a year after it's been offered because they signed up and they're just taking their time to finish it. They're getting a lot out of it. And so completion rate itself isn't important. It's just, are they getting stuff out of what they are watching? And the definite answer is yes.
Excuse me. One of the questions which I had was about the bandwidth about the internet connections for students, especially, with regard to this morning's talk about, doing ever more simulation-based classes. So did you all face problems with students not being able to access some of your material, especially, some of the more video material because they did not have the right kind of internet connection?
Yeah, personally, that's a huge problem in Montana. We have rural areas, and everybody assumes that everybody has blazing fast Wi-Fi, and it's amazing when you do an online course. There's people that don't have access to internet unless they go to the library, and it's a huge deal. Yeah, so it limits some of the things that you can do in a particular environment.
So I'm Lawrence Simon from New Jersey Institute of Technology. When you have an existing course and you convert that into an online course, what happened to the old course? Do you run them in parallel or do you get rid of it?
Okay. You're talking about the courses that I've offered. We're still offering the course and it is still meeting on a regular basis in class. So we haven't gotten rid of it. We've just changed the way it's being taught.
Okay, so you never had a situation where you have two sections of a course, one online and the other one on regular?
Well, we did that. We did teach it. One of the courses we taught is a distance learning version, and that was kind of an interesting thing because we blended the regular class, and they have a lot of class activity, worksheets and things like that. So what do I do with the distance learning one? They don't meet. They don't have that in-class activity. They're watching the same lectures that everybody else is watching. It's all online lectures. So what I did to mimic that class interaction was I encouraged them to use the discussion forum, and then I graded their participation in the discussion forum in place of the in-class activities. And I still did give them the same worksheets that I gave the class. So it was a little bit challenging to try to make them equal.
Christina Giloperczak, University of Connecticut. I have a question to Brian. I like the very solid methodology of the preparing the software, and you mentioned about the students' different skills. Can you provide some relation between different skills of students and the parts of your software?
Well, I think that would be a very interesting research question, and I think as we develop it more, right now we're not really doing a lot to develop or to measure their skills coming in, and I think that's something, and you have to be a little bit careful in doing that, right? Because you don't want to, start labeling students as different categories. But
yes, because I think that it's very important to differentiate audience of the students over through the online teaching. We cannot assume that they are the same.
Right.
It is not only about adaptive learning. It is something more, and you brought a very interesting perspective.
Yeah. I think that as these tools develop, we can incorporate a lot of things like that into them. Of course, it takes a lot of time and effort to do that, but there's a lot of potential for doing those kinds of things.
I think that Bonnie also brought a very interesting interaction with public, bringing someone from industry and saying that, oh, it is exactly what we are applying in industrial environment is great. Mm-hmm. It is real life scenario. Thank you, Bonnie.
Can I jump in and follow on that? There was a question on the website from, let's see. It was an excellent question. There it is. Okay. Shannon, where are you? Shannon gets a gold star. Your question was about the perception of employers of people who are trained in various ways and whether our panel has any wisdom or experience with that, right? Does that capture it?
That's right. I mean, is it too early to know, or do we have some sense whether engineering employers are excited about these opportunities because it gives an alternate way for their employees to be trained, or is there some kind of perception that it's not equal or as good as the traditional in-class interaction? Do you know about that?
So all of my students are fully employed, and most of them are supported at least in part by their employers, many completely. And I'd say attitudes have changed greatly by employers on that. It's one thing to have a quality program from a brick and mortar institution that happens to be an online program. It's a different thing to have a degree from an online institution. And that's where emphasis on quality is really important. But certainly at this point, I think most employers expect that any education their employees have who are traveling any given day and need to be able to continue their education, the preference is for online education. That's correct. Right. I would make a big difference between graduate and undergraduate, absolutely, and the difference between adult learners and younger on-campus learners. We limit our class size to 30 because we do emphasize a high level of interaction between faculty and the individual students.
Yes, Irvin Jones from University of Pittsburgh. My question is, well, kind of like a question comment. A lot of with the online courses, MOOCs, in general, there seems to be this formula that the instructors engage the students in the classroom. The students must engage in learning and engage with each other. And with this, if that is going on in the traditional classroom, then the only advantage I see with the online is that now you can reach massive amounts of students. If it's not going on in the classroom, then with respect to Brock's comment that teachers want their students to learn, obviously they're not doing a good job as an educator. And so what is there in that, should we just be able to adapt our teaching styles to engage the students as opposed to, what I observe especially at my institution, professors sit up, put a bunch of PowerPoints up on the screen and then go, any questions?
One of the goals in blended learning right now is to identify what the correct mix is. What do you put online and what do you have in class? And I kind of look at it and say, Well, what's the process that people go through in learning a material in engineering? They'll start out with the basic concepts, the basic definitions, the basic concepts, and then you do simple examples, and then more advanced concepts, more advanced examples, and then where the real learning comes in is working problems. Well, what happens in a regular lecture, even if you did it in an engaged format, is you don't make it very far into that process before you run out of time. So you spend a lot of time on the basic concepts. Here's the definition, here's step 1, step 2. And what's the most common question you get when you're going through that sort of material? Well, common question on a day-to-day basis. The day-to-day basics is, can you do that again? Can you repeat that? Can you show me that again? And that you can accomplish by putting that all online. You go through the basic steps, basic definition, here's some simple examples, you put that online, and then you get to the classroom and you say, okay, we're gonna start with that as the basics. You're prepared for class. I mean, in the humanities, people have done this for years. They say, do the readings, come to class prepared to discuss it. So we're saying, okay, do the background stuff, the basic theory, and then come to class, and we're going to do more advanced examples, more in-depth theory, where you're going to have a lot more questions, interactive questions, and we can work on that. And we're going to do problems in class, and you're going to sit there and work in groups and do these problems and worksheets. So you're getting to higher level learning in class where you've got the faculty there who can really support you and help you, as opposed to the traditional thing where you never got to that in class, and instead you said, okay, here's some really complicated homework problems, you're on your own to solve them.
Yeah, and I agree with what you say. If there is no interaction or, with the student, then online education is no different than just building larger auditoriums, right? Because it's a one-way feed to the student. And so you say, well, what's the value of even having the instructor? Why don't you just record them and play the video? And so it's, capping classes in online courses can help, but just any sort of feedback, I think, is what adds the value there.
We have time for more questions.
I think we have one more question.
One more question.
I'm from Penn State University, Sharma Pishapati. This is about undergraduate education online. When you talked about limitations, do you foresee any limitation on offering an engineering program completely online? And as far as I'm aware of, there is no complete online undergraduate program which is accredited so far by ABET.
Well, we have an ABET accredited online.
Completely online.
Completely online. Now, we haven't offered it all the way through yet. We're still about the second, third year. So
how is it accredited when it is only in the third year? You should have a graduate.
Well, I can't speak for ABET, but they granted us accreditation. So.
All right. And do you anticipate any virtual university in future as online educators where I take a course from Stanford, a course from MIT, a course from Michigan, a course from someplace, and some university, virtual university, will offer a degree? I mean, the best professors, the best education they can get is like that, if it is the case.
I'd like to jump in and say, to the extent that we're commoditizing higher education, yes, that could definitely happen. But we've just heard very powerful evidence that personal interaction and communication between faculty and students, between students and students, is really crucial. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see a bifurcation where you have a set of online universities that do that sort of thing that are perceived to be of lower value than the bricks and mortar residential experience that we've all been sort of talking about. It seems possible to me.
But residential and online should be equal. Otherwise, how can we accredit that as an accredited program?
Well,
they have to have all the outcomes.
Sure, these other ones may or may not be accredited. I think you'll see a two-tier thing.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
All right. So we have actually we could go on for a long time, I think, but lunch is about to happen. So I would encourage you to see the panelists at lunch. This has been really fascinating, actually. We've gotten 4 really interesting and different perspectives on online. Let's thank our panelists one more time, and then before you go.